Game Masters, we've done it. We've gone through all of the spellcasting classes in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and today is the last one. By my reckoning, this is the day to talk about Rangers. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner, and welcome back once again to the Daily D20, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. And today is Spell Slinging Saturday, and we've got our last spellcasting class here to talk about today. We're talking about Rangers. Now, Rangers are the ranged combat specialist in our Dungeons & Dragons adventures. They generally tend to rely more on combat techniques, bows, arrows, crossbows, etc., more than their actual spellcasting, but they do have some spellcasting abilities, even though it is kind of weak. But we want to talk about those so you can get an idea of how the Ranger actually works. Now, when you decide to play a Ranger, you're not going to get spellcasting until level 2. Similar to the Paladin, it's kind of a secondary skill of the Ranger, so they have it start a little bit later, but it is still important when building a powerful Ranger character. Now, the Ranger spellcasting ability is Wisdom, but this is probably the first time I will say don't make that your highest stat, because Rangers rely more heavily on Dexterity for their combat. You want your Wisdom to be your second highest score when building your character. The magical powers that a Ranger possesses come from nature, so similar to Druids, they draw on the actual forces of nature to cast their magical spells, which could be why it feels like Druids and Rangers get along pretty well. Now, if you play a Ranger, you'll find that you spend most of your time doing ranged attacks, shooting your bows, and using your special feats from your class rather than your actual spells, but it's important to know the spells that you have available to you and how they work. So let's get into that. Rangers get their spellcasting at level 2, like I mentioned. They do have the list of spell slots and spell slot levels, but as you look at this grid for Rangers, you'll see that they are pretty weak. By the time they get level 20, they're still just using level 5 spell slots, so as far as spellcasters goes, these guys are not powerful. They also don't learn a whole lot of spells. It's a pretty slow progression into spells as a Ranger. But as you level up, the Ranger learns more spells, and the table explains how many spells that the Ranger actually knows. One thing you'll notice, the Ranger doesn't have a massive list of spells that they know. As you begin to level up, you only get 1 or 2 spells per level, if that, but you do have the option as a Ranger to change out one of your known spells for one that you didn't know before. So you can swap spells, but only when you level up and only 1 spell at a time. This kind of ties you into whatever spells you're using, so you have to be really careful when picking your spells. But the fun part about Rangers is at level 3 they get to pick an archetype. Similar to the subclasses that everyone has, the archetype is the Ranger's subclass. And certain archetypes give the Ranger more spellcasting abilities in the form of free spells that the Ranger can use. Now, if you look in your different archetypes, you'll see a listing of spells, so I think it's good that you read up on those when you pick your archetype before you go picking spells. It's so you don't try to accidentally double up on when you pick a certain spell and then you realize at the next level you're gonna get that spell for free anyways. You then have to waste one of your spell swaps in order to pick a different spell. So that's why I think maybe you should read up on your archetype, understand the spells you have coming up, before you go picking your spells at each level. It's just a good way to do things. An important thing to remember is as you level up as a Ranger, the spells you gain each level in your archetype don't count against your total number of known spells. These are a bonus. Now, that is basically it with Ranger spellcasting. You're still dealing with spell slots and spellcasting abilities and spell save DCs and those kind of things. It's simple stuff. But the Ranger is a very fun class to play because you bring some spells and you get this whole other side of being a really cool martial, kind of ranged martial fighter that when I've played a Ranger, I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I got to put out a lot of damage. It feels really good when you roll some high numbers as a Ranger and you're able to kill things from a long ways away and they can't even touch you. So think about that if you decide to ever play a Ranger. I highly recommend it. I don't see enough of it at games. It's kind of an overlooked class in the circles that I play in, but I really recommend people try it out and really get into the Ranger lifestyle. If you've liked this video, I invite you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos every day. And of course, fellow Game Masters, I've been Richard Quiner. Thank you for watching.